The Midwest is on the fast track of roller coaster activity, including the Golden Triangle of roller coasters: Cedar Point, Kennywood, and Kings Island. Together, they represent the best of the coaster genre.
Look who's riding the Magnet. Feet is pretty high. Well, what goes up must come down. Even when you see it, you won't believe it. The Magnum XL200. Get to the point.
When Magnum XL200 was announced for Cedar Point in the summer of 1988, maybe it wasn't apparent the effect it would have on the industry. There were other signs. Six Flags Great Adventure announced the Great American Scream Machine at the same time, and the year prior, Six Flags Great America opened the world's first 7-inversion coaster in Shockwave. This meant Kings Island's Vortex only held the inversion record for 1 year. Meanwhile, at the park, Waterworks was gearing up for its grand opening, with the park having to reroute the railroad to accommodate the new water park. It was slated to open with the park on April 8th, heating the water to 80 degrees to make up for the cold weather, but a rainy spring delayed construction. PR manager Ruth Voss said it was the first time in 18 years they hadn't been able to open a major attraction with the park. Rain wasn't their only problem going into 1989. Animal rights activists accused the park of mistreating the animals in the wild animal habitat, their main charge around the chaining of elephants, one of which died. Their allegations came in part from a zookeeper who was fired from the park. Kings Island responded, claiming they weren't doing anything out of the ordinary, confirming an elephant did die, but the autopsy showed it was from natural causes. The U.S. Department of Agriculture launched an investigation shortly after. Waterworks opened 2 weeks into the season, included with a 1995 admission to the park. Timberwolf played host to Dick Clark's American Bandstand Tour, Rick Astley, The Bangles, Jefferson Airplane, and many more. The Ninja Turtles made an appearance at the International Showplace, along with 5 new stage shows for the season. 1989 would also be the last season for Der Spin and Kagers, one of the park's original rides. For the next season, they announced a new $1 million inner tube ride for Waterworks, later named Giant Rushing River, and for Kings Island, a $2 million flat ride called Flight Commander. This would be a 20-pod spinning ride, taking 2 passengers 60 feet up in the air, and the pod can be maneuvered to dip, rise, and perform barrel rolls. The park was hoping to capitalize on an amazing year, bringing in 3.16 million guests. Waterworks was only expected to bring in 300,000 in its first year. They ended up with over 1 million. Kings Island was flying high going into the 90s, booking concerts like Tears for Fears, the Isley Brothers, and Tommy Page, raising admission to $20.95 and parking to $3.50. But they were met with an extended spell of bad weather, and that kept the crowds away into the early summer. But the weather improved. People flocked in to ride the new additions in the water park and the dry park, and by the end of summer, they were approaching yet another record. When asked what the secret was behind these record-setting years, Carolyn Booz replied, "New thrills." Kings Island planned on keeping that train rolling right into the next year, announcing Adventure Express, a $4 million coaster designed to resemble a runaway train at an old mining camp. Built by Aerodynamics, this would travel over 3,000 feet of track, go through tunnels, and encounter characters and special effects. It was a ride aimed at families and younger kids, and it was a stark contrast to the new coasters being added around them. 2 years after opening the world's tallest coaster, Cedar Point was going for another record, the world's tallest wooden coaster. The company behind the $7.5 million monstrosity was the Den Corporation, led by Charles Den. Kings Island's former director of construction, maintenance, and engineering left the park in 1983 to start his own firm, and the man behind the beast was now going even bigger across the state. Other Kings Entertainment parks were building major thrill rides, including Anaconda at Kings Dominion and Vortex at Canada's Wonderland, both also coming from Aerodynamics. Many parks already had these runaway mine train coasters from Aero, going back to the 60s and 70s. In August, 19 people were injured when their Huss Enterprise, Skylab, came to an unexpected halt. Nobody was seriously hurt, but the ride was closed for inspection. Nothing would happen to Skylab, but the Ferris wheel and Flying Dutchman were retired after the season. 1991 presented a slew of challenges for Kings Island, some of which were out of their control. First, the economy started to weaken, so people had less money to spend at the park. At the same time, the market for live performances was hot, with performers asking for top dollar to make appearances. Kings Island once again raised their prices to accommodate this, now $22.95, and in-park concert tickets were now $8. Adventure Express opened on time, its signature element being the tunnel full of animatronic drummers, beating away at their drums on either side of the train. If Indiana Jones ever settles down and has kids, he could take them on Kings Island's new Adventure Express and not worry about nightmares haunting their sleep. Connie Yeager, Cincinnati Post. Right when Kings Island opened full-time for the 1991 season, the park had a day so tragic it was impossible to forget. Something so surreal, it could only come out of a nightmare. On the evening of June 9th, Tim Binning fell into a pond near the beer garden. He recalls something pulling him down into the water, and then he hit a metal bar that shocked him several times. This would burn his arm and his neck. His friend William Heathcote saw what happened and dove in after him. Park employee Daryl Robertson was soon to follow. The three were pulled out of the water. Binning survived. Heathcote and Robertson did not. Heathcote died instantly from cardiac arrest from the electrical shocks. Robertson's official cause of death was drowning, having been knocked unconscious by the shock, inhaling and ingesting water before his death. Less than 1 hour later, a woman fell from the new Flight Commander ride and was killed. Witnesses saw her capsule rotate, and she slid to the empty seat and entirely out of the capsule, falling 30 feet into the tree-lined area. 2 unspeakable accidents, 3 deaths, all within 1 hour. Investigators found 4 electrical hazards that caused the pond to be dangerous. They found the pond aerator was installed with the park back in 1971, and that predated some stricter regulations passed in 1981. The park didn't violate any laws, but the device was not up to modern codes. OSHA found 7 safety violations and fined the park $23,500. Kings Island reconciled this issue by installing circuit interrupters all over the park, designed to shut off power if they detect electricity escaping into undesignated areas. These devices only cost between $15 and $50. As OSHA's William Murphy said, they could have spent the price of a discount ticket, and the people would be alive today. A simple device could have saved some lives in this case. The 32-year-old victim of the Flight Commander accident was found to have an alcohol level of 0.30, 3 times the level set by the state of Ohio to consider a person legally drunk. This launched an investigation into the park's alcohol service practice, but they couldn't prove any laws regarding over-serving a person were broken. Her condition was ruled a factor in her death, but in the end, the accident was blamed on a design flaw in the restraints. Riders were able to move horizontally and out of the restraints, a problem made worse without a second person in the capsule. Flight Commander was partially dismantled as the park entered talks with Intamin to modify it, and by the end of the summer, it was clear they were aiming to reopen the ride. By the opening of the 1992 season, the ride added a dividing wall between the seats, lengthened the sides of the lap bar so it came closer to the dividing wall and the side of the capsule, and the ride-ups would start closing the restraints of the empty seats. There would be an $8 million lawsuit filed against Intamin in 1993, and Kings Island settled with the family for about $336,000. Adding to the park's problems in 1991, a funnel cloud hit the park in August, causing some damage to waterworks. Nobody was in the area of the water park when it happened, and the rest of the park remained open. By the end of the year, the park gave a farewell to the Smurfs Enchanted Voyage, set to replace it with the Phantom Theater, a $3.5 million haunted dark ride. The area would also be home to a new 500-seat indoor children's theater, called Enchanted Theater. There would also be 3 new kids' rides, including a small miler coaster called Scooby Zoom. For Kings Island's 20th anniversary, the park was looking for a rebound. Attendance stepped well below the 3 million mark, down 11% from 1990. With the help of Mean Streak, it was the first time in 3 years that Cedar Point beat Kings Island in attendance. One aspect of the Kings Island complex that would not rebound was the College Football Hall of Fame. When Taft brought the facility to Warren County back in 1978, they were hoping for 300,000 visitors every year. They wound up with about 10% of that number. In January, the hall closed for good and sought to reopen in South Bend, Indiana. Once the park opened for the 1992 season, the Phantom Theater got rave reviews. It was rated as one of the top new rides of the year by Family Fun magazine, described as a Disneyland-style attraction, 4.5 minutes long with 38 animated figures and other sensory effects. Timberwolf also booked major acts, like Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Hammer, the Beach Boys, and others. Right as the park seemed to be getting back on track, a shockwave was sent through the industry.
For over 80 years, Paramount has taken you on a roller coaster of action, adventure, and entertainment. Now, Paramount is about to take you beyond the limits of the motion picture screen to the next generation of excitement, where the magic of the movies meets the thrills of a lifetime. Get ready for Paramount's Kings Island, opening April 9th, weekends beginning April 10th.
In late July 1992, Paramount Communications agreed to acquire Kings Island and the Kings Entertainment Parks for $400 million. Kings Island's owner, Carl Lindner, was set to receive $200 million in the deal. He agreed to the sale once Paramount agreed to make no major changes in operations that would affect current management. This was coming on the heels of Lindner ending the contract with King's Entertainment to manage the park. Lindner denied the explanations that the sale was due to the 11% attendance slide. Rather, they were investors, and this was a deal that was too good to pass up. Nelson Schwab III of the King's Entertainment Company saw things a little different. He believed the industry was turning towards lower-cost rides with theme-oriented material. He felt like Paramount had the branding to make this happen, with products like Indiana Jones, Star Trek, and more. He said this was needed for the park to take that next quantum leap. After the sale, they would be in position to update our long-range plans for the parks with Paramount products. Schwab was able to get Paramount to acquire the King's Entertainment Company first, and then suggested they go after Kings Island as well. Paramount agreed. With the sale, Paramount became the 4th largest park operator in the nation, just behind Disney, Anheuser-Busch, and Time Warner, who owned Six Flags at the time. Paramount would bring Schwab on board as a chairman and CEO of their brand new theme park subsidiary, Paramount Parks. Kings Island would also name a new executive vice president and general manager, Alexander Weber Jr. He was coming over from Great America in Santa Clara, California, where he held the same position. Following the sale, Paramount was granted rights to the Hanna-Barbera characters through 2009, but they were still expected to do a massive rebranding, promoting their more popular products. This was expected to be done before any new major rides were added, but right away, Paramount proved they could do both. In November, Kings Island announced Top Gun, a $5 million suspended coaster from Aerodynamics, themed to the Tom Cruise film from 1986. The Aero suspended coaster was making a comeback to Kings Island, 10 years after the back closed because of design flaws. The park emphasized the technology around this model had been tried and improved since then, including Vortex at their sister park, Canada's Wonderland, having been open since 1991. Alexander Weber said, "Top Gun is the first of many movie-themed products that Paramount will add to the park. But Paramount giveth, and Paramount taketh away." Winterfest 1992 was announced to be the park's last, ending an 11-year run, as Paramount wanted to concentrate on the park's primary operating season, adding weekends in October to the calendar. As guests entered the turnstiles for the 1993 season, they were entering a whole new Kings Island. The American Heritage Music Hall was now called the Paramount Theater. Paramount on Ice was a new skating show, featuring music from movies like An Officer and a Gentleman, Star Trek, Grease, and Footloose. The Tower Gardens was turned into the Paramount story, highlighting the studio's popular films. Characters from Paramount movies, like Star Trek and the Coneheads, would join the Hanna-Barbera characters. There would also be an exhibit of Star Trek memorabilia for 2 weeks in June. A new ad campaign was launched, Paramount's Kings Island, where the magic of the movies meets the thrills of a lifetime. Admission was bumped up $1 to $23.95. Top Gun opened with the park for the 1993 season and got great reviews. The only complaint seemed to be that it was too short, lasting about a minute and a half and covering 2,352 feet of track. However, Kings Island veteran Don Helbig, making the news for riding the racer 10,000 times and having ridden suspended coasters all over the country, said this was the best one he's been on, far and away. While Paramount clearly had their sights on new rides and shows, they had little interest in maintaining wildlife. At the end of the 1993 season, the park announced the wild animal habitat would be shut down immediately. They would work on finding new homes for the exotic animals that were not native to Ohio, having 300 animals total. Meanwhile, Paramount was planning the next big ride, Days of Thunder, a motion simulator ride, featuring scenes from the 1990 Tom Cruise film of the same name. This was a new theater that could be repurposed for other shows in the future. Later in the year, Paramount announced a deal to merge with Viacom, the parent of Nickelodeon and MTV. Viacom would pay $10 billion to buy Paramount, and this would open up even more branding opportunities for the Paramount parks. And Viacom assured the public the Paramount parks would not be sold. With everything changing, the axe rolling into Timberwolf remained. 1993 featured the Beach Boys, the Doobie Brothers, and ex-Eagles Glenn Frey and Joe Walsh. In 1994, former Kings Island seasonal employee Jane Cooper was named president of Paramount Parks, taking the spot of Nelson Schwab III, having concocted the Paramount takeover and looking for a new challenge. Days of Thunder was a big hit as the major new ride, and there were several new shows, including Game On, a new interactive game show in the Fest House, where guests could take part in slapstick contests and win prizes. Timberwolf introduced a new tiered pricing system, where the kids' shows cost $3, acts like the B-52s and Hank Williams Jr. were $5, and the Blues Fest featuring B.B. King and Natalie Cole would run you $10. Paramount Parks did not waste any time taking advantage of the Viacom branding, announcing the Nickelodeon Splat City for 1995, a new themed area with fountains of green slime. This would include all kinds of games and activities, most of which coated its participant in slime. They would also use their MTV brand to bring two of the network's most popular shows to Kings Island, Singled Out and The Grind. More interactive entertainment for the guests. The crowd responded to Kings Island's new identity, bringing in a record 3.3 million guests. Nickelodeon's Splat City was not the only thing new for 1995. Kings Island also introduced Drop Zone. Inspired by the 1994 film starring Wesley Snipes, this would be a 170-foot sky coaster. This would not be included with the price of admission, with guests having to pay between $14.95 to $24.95, depending if they were riding solo or riding with one or two others. Riders are strapped into full-body flight harnesses, lifted to the max height, then pulls on the ripcord and into a freefall, swooping over the ground at 60 miles per hour. Timberwolf also brought in some new acts, one being the Highwaymen. This was a group made up of Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny Cash. They also mixed it up with TLC, REO Speedwagon, Pat Benatar, and Fleetwood Mac. In the summer of 1995, Kings Island asked to be annexed into the city of Mason. Currently part of Deerfield Township, officials thought it was in the best interest of the park to be part of Mason, being able to take advantage of all the services they offer. This would spark a long battle between the park, the city of Mason, and Deerfield Township that would last for years, including Mason's seceding from Deerfield Township, Kings Island trying to change sides to remain in Deerfield Township, the Ohio Supreme Court rejecting Deerfield Township's appeal, followed by Mason annexing most of the park in 1997, except for a small part to appease Deerfield Township. And by 1999, the park was entirely in Mason. 1995 would be the final season for Flight Commander, serving 4 more seasons after its fatal accident, as well as Scrappy Slides, a Coney Island original that opened in the Coney Mall as Flying Carpet, but was moved to Hanna-Barbera Land in 1986. By the end of the summer, Paramount was ready to roll out the next big coaster for the park, this one with a dark twist.
Remember years ago when you were afraid, frightened, terrified of the dark? Welcome back. Prepare yourself for the Outer Limits Flight of Fear, the scariest, darkest, most twisted roller coaster ever. Face your fears, only at Paramount's Kings Island.
Themed after the 1960s science fiction TV series, the new Premier Rides coaster would be called the Outer Limits Flight of Fear. Located entirely indoors and mostly in the dark with some special effects, the coaster would be the first to use linear induction motors to launch the train, reaching speeds of 53 miles per hour and traversing 4 inversions. The ride building would only take up 1 acre of land, so the track would be very compact. The VP of Construction and Maintenance called this the most ambitious undertaking in the history of the park. As the ride was under construction, 20-year-old worker John Reeves fell off the roof, plunging 110 feet. Amazingly, he survived, and he even tried to stand up before someone told him to stay down. He broke his hip, pelvic bone, both heels, his left femur, and crushed his right foot. Flight of Fear would not be ready to open with the park in April, but the other new attraction would be. This was XS Raceway, a 665-foot oval bank go-kart track. Just like Drop Zone, renamed Extreme Skyflyer for the 1996 season, XS Raceway was not included in the price of admission. It would cost $5 per driver, $2.50 per passenger. The park initially thought Flight of Fear could open in late May, and that quickly turned into mid-June. Park officials said it was the longest and most complicated project they've ever done, and blamed the unprecedented technology on the delay. On June 18th, it finally rolled out to the park's biggest thrill seekers. One early rider said, "The launch was something you can experience only if you're a fighter pilot. It plasters your jaws against the back of the seat." Another said, "It's that initial pop, that launch, then it never lets up." General Manager Alexander Weber Jr. added, "It's more than just a new ride. It's the most innovative themed ride experience available anywhere today." Adding to the ride experience was the brand new QTV, a set of TV screens located inside the ride's queue, telling the riders they were part of a government teleconference, and an alien spacecraft has landed and was being studied by scientists. The riders enter a hangar with a glowing saucer, and when they prepare to enter the spaceship, the aliens take over. It's a 15-minute setup, meant not only to pass the long queue times, but also to provide the most integrated ride experience in the park. QTV was a big part of the new Outer Limits Flight of Fear, but it was incorporated into the rest of the park also. About 200 video monitors were placed in ride lines, picnic rows, and restaurants, providing everything from entertainment to advertisements to general park information. Following a year with one of the world's most innovative coasters, Kings Island focused on their water park for the 1997 season. Waterworks would receive a massive expansion, doubling its 15 acres to 30, including a children's water area and a 31,000 square foot, 600,000 gallon heated wave pool. The park's 25th season would open with the admission price topping $30, a price that people would be willing to pay given its lofty status. The National Amusement Park Historical Association held a survey, and Kings Island ranked 4th in the list of best parks, trailing Disneyland, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and Walt Disney World. And it was also voted the 3rd most beautiful park, just behind Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Alton Towers. Alexander Weber would be promoted to COO of Paramount Parks, and his position as general manager would be filled by Tim Fisher. The park would throw a kids' Hallowfest for Halloween, with special activities in the Fest House and Hanna-Barbera Land, which was also announced for an expansion the next season. The major addition would be Scooby's Ghoster Coaster, a suspended kids ride unique to America, described as a cross between hang gliding and a traditional coaster, with 2 riders per car sitting one in front of the other, rising up a 40-foot elevator lift, and then swooping through a 450-foot course. For waterworks, the park announced Wipeout Beach, a bodyboard surfing attraction. The park had to say goodbye to their antique cars, the Ohio Overland Auto Livery. This closed after the 1997 season, but it wouldn't be removed for several more years. The park also bid farewell to their Huss Enterprise, Skylab. Days of Thunder also ran its course, being reprogrammed at James Bond 007, a license to thrill. This would be joined by the new backlot stunt show and a new rock wall called The Edge, another upcharge attraction. 2 years removed from their last major thrill coaster, Kings Island was ready for their next. This would be themed to the 1997 John Travolta-Nicolas Cage film Face Off, a Vekoma inverted boomerang. True to its name, it would have riders facing each other as the train rises up 131 feet forward and backward, with 3 inversions in between. They would also install a 315-foot Intamin gyro drop ride. This would be called Drop Zone Stunt Tower, using the same theme the Extreme Skyflyer opened with in 1995. 1999 would also bring a new name for the XS Raceway, the park again reusing a former theme and going with Days of Thunder. Amazon Falls would now be called Congo Falls, themed to the 1995 film. This would be part of an expansion and retheme of the Adventure Village, formerly the Wild Animal Habitat, now to be known as the Action Zone. This transformed the former safari area into a Hollywood backlot. There would be a 40-foot replica of the Paramount Studios water tower, with new shows from the Paramount Action Stunt Team. Also bringing the entertainment would be teenage superstar Britney Spears, coming to Timberwolf in August, as well as Star Trek Earth Tour, another 2-week exhibit of models, costumes, and memorabilia. Kings Island said 1999 was the year with the most capital investments, ever. But there were nothing but problems that arose that were out of the park's control. First, Drop Zone was hit by lightning, closing the ride for about a day. Less than a month later, the ride was shut down following an accident at Paramount's Great America in California. A boy fell to his death on a similar ride there, having slipped out of his harness, and Kings Island decided to install a seatbelt to connect the seat with the restraint. The same week as the Drop Zone closure, King Cobra had to shut down following a fatality on Shockwave at Paramount's King's Dominion, both stand-up coasters manufactured by Togo. Once it was determined the victim was not following safety rules, both parks reopened their coasters after just a couple days. Although neither of these accidents occurred at Kings Island, it sparked the conversation once again about theme park safety. State Senator Mark Mallory announced his plans to review laws governing inspection of rides. Ohio and Florida were the only states to employ full-time inspectors, giving licenses and conducting twice-a-year inspections. This also sparked the push for federal oversight, and that started to gain steam near the end of 1999. The questions over ride safety only intensified as the rides continued to get bigger and faster. The coaster revolution that Magnum XL200 started 10 years prior had reached a whole new level. On July 22, 1999, Cedar Point would stun the coaster world with the announcement of Millennium Force, the world's first 300-foot coaster. But Kings Island would not be left behind. Paramount had something big in store for the park, and in many ways, it was more extreme and ambitious than the 300-footer. And it was, without a doubt, the worst decision in Kings Island's 50-year history. Thanks for watching episode 3 of this 5-part documentary. If you could drop a like and share this video with anyone who may be interested, I would appreciate it. This is a massive project and I appreciate the support. Stay tuned next week for episode 4, as Kings Island deals with the fallout of their new hyperlooping wooden coaster, and a new owner takes the park to a whole new level.